the award for Best Picture.
I want reliable people that aren't going to be carried away.
Can you believe it's been 50 years since we first met the Corleone family? 50 years on, The Godfather has taken its place high on the list of classic Hollywood movies.
My feeling was that I could give the movie authenticity about how Italian Americans live.
Godfather, an Albert S. Ruddy production, Paramount, Albert S. Ruddy producer.
What we consider real art is a movie that does not have a safety net. Godfather 1 did not have a safety net.
And the winner, Godfather.
I was about 29 when I began preparing The Godfather, and in the course of the years involved in making it and editing it, I guess I was in my very early 30s. Nothing about what my life was like remained the same after The Godfather. Certainly that film changed everything for me.
But your business is a little dangerous.
And I thought, this is just sort of salacious, trying to make money kind of book, and so I disregarded it. When they offered it to me, I turned it down.
What changed your mind?
George Lucas came to me and says, Francis, we're going broke. They're going to chain the door for lack of paying the rent of our American Zoetrope studio, and you have to do this. We have no other alternative. We need the money. I didn't know anything about what we called the mafia or Cosa Nostra, but neither did Mario know anything about it. He did everything by research. He read the Valachi papers, and of course a lot has been written about the story of the Italian gangster in New York, the so-called Five Families and what happened. So my feeling was that even though I knew nothing about it, I had never met a real mafioso. My family were all musicians or tool and die makers. But one thing we were an Italian-American family, so the home, what we had at the dinner table, the way the men related to the women, the way the children were at the wedding, running around the sandwich, the fact that Italian weddings were sandwiches thrown, wrapped in paper, and all of those traditions and sensibilities were in my blood because I was an Italian-American kid raised in New York at a time when it wasn't even cool to be an Italian.
He is Al Pacino.
Francis Coppola wanted me to play the part of Michael Corleone in it.
Francis always wanted me to be in that part. I was who he saw in that role. And
my father went to see this band.
I had no idea that was the part for me.
I'm gonna straighten everything out tonight. I don't want my father bothered anymore.
And one of the reasons he saw me in that part was because I got to know him a little bit a year before.
The reason I was hired in The Godfather finally is because they saw 8 minutes of Panic in Needle Park. That is the reason. Francis Coppola's persistent.
It's good, it's good.
I thought it was Sonny Corleone. That was the part which had the more obviously, the more demonstrative. But it was really Michael's transitions from what he was to becoming what he became. That was the sort of juice of the part. And it took me a while to realize that.
To the experience of The Godfather, number one, it was a terrible experience. I was always on the verge of about to get fired. And
he said, Al, I'm doing The Godfather. It was shocking to me. Well, how'd they pick him? You know, because he was this avant-garde, brilliant filmmaker. And you knew it, but you didn't know that they would give him a movie as big as The Godfather.
And a lot of my choices were immediately discarded. I wanted Al Pacino to play the character Michael, and they said that's ridiculous. No one's ever heard of him. And I wanted Marlon Brando to be the now famous Don Corleone, and they said, oh, he's a lot of trouble, and no one's going to see his films anymore.
I finally was saying to him, look, Francis, it's fine. I'll survive. I'll do other stuff. He really wanted me. Ever since then, I thought, that's really when a director is interested in you for a part, that means something.
I wanted to make it in New York. They said, you can't make it in New York, it's too expensive. I wanted to make it set in 1945 the way the book was. They said, it's ridiculous, you can't do it, you can't have it, you can't do it, and this is a terrible movie, to the point where at least 4 occasions I came that close to getting fired. And then, surprise was surprise, it turns out to be this gigantic success, and suddenly I became this famous person, which in itself is also another thing to deal with.
But I'm glad I did it.
Yeah, absolutely.
I must say, and I
What's it
hope
like?
Francis was right. I think he was.
See, but I did work very hard to study and try to take out of the novel what I thought was in there, which was, despite all of the potboiler stuff, there was in there sort of the latent idea of a classical, almost Shakespearean story about a great king who had 3 sons and needed to choose one to succeed him. So I think it was that political analysis and story of power and its succession that made the film more weighty and more interesting.
I got an impression from the novel, which was that's what's good sometimes. You get an impression from real life characters too. That's why you meet them, characters you're gonna play. And you get an impression, and you let the impression of the character sort of live in you. Michael was a very difficult character in that he starts one way and transitions to another. And I did not have the time, although I spent countless hours trying to figure it out, but I didn't have the time. So what I thought of was to low-key it early on, hoping that a character would emerge that surprised you. And I thought that was the key to the character in terms of making the impression, because you'd say, where did he come from? And there he is, all of a sudden. How did it happen? So it has a kind of enigmatic quality to it.
Always the movie you do that is something a little different is rejected in its own time, but years later it becomes the new. It was a studio cat, I just put it in his hand. He would never say, what do you want me to do? I joke that, like, if he's in a scene, Brandon was in a scene and a herd of buffalo ran by in character, he would say, oh, look at the buffalo. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
He would make use of anything. Yeah. He was great. He was a genius, no doubt about it.
Well, I believe strongly in acting from the unconscious. That's my belief. I believe that what you hope happens is your unconscious is freed. If you're relaxed enough, if you're into it enough, you trust that part of you. That's why I believe in consuming as much as you can. That's why I used impression kind of thing. And then allowing and trusting that.
Now then, Godfather becomes the standard to measure against. In other words, art is a ever-blossoming flower that we're all part of. It's a beautiful thing, really.
And the winner is Mario Puzo and Francis Ford Coppola for The Godfather.